to stay.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Boards, a podcast dedicated to the actions and interests of skaters beyond skateboarding. My guest today, Oliver Percovich, is originally from Australia, but is currently living and working in Berlin, Germany, where he oversees the operations and expansion of NGO Skateistan, which he founded in 2007. Since its humble beginnings in Afghanistan, Skateistan has expanded to other countries such as Cambodia, South Africa, and Jordan, and in 2022 aims to expand to 20 locations and reach 4,500 students each week. They aim to collect $1.5 million in donations before May 2022 to help reach these goals and are already halfway through. A documentary about Skateistan's work in Afghanistan called Learning How to Skateboard in a Warzone If You're a Girl was produced in 2019 and won a BAFTA and Academy Award. It will soon be available worldwide. So here's my conversation with Oliver Percovich. I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, so to get us started, maybe if I'd be just interested in knowing where you grew up. I know you're from Australia, but you've been living in Europe for a long time now. But I think one of your parents is originally from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit about growing up and like this connection to Germany and how you picked up a skateboard in the middle of all this, basically?
Cool. So, yeah, I was born in Melbourne, Australia, and I actually grew up in Papua New Guinea from age 5 to around 10, and then was in Australia again. And my mum is German. My dad basically escaped from former Yugoslavia into Italy and then came on a boat out to Australia as a refugee in the 60s. So both my parents are from Europe. I was born in Australia, and I'm Australian, and I guess I've ended up in Europe. And skateboarding came really early. One of my cousins was a skateboarder in Melbourne, Australia in the 1970s. And he skateboarded, I guess, like mid 70s or so. And I went around to my cousin's place. It was shortly before my 6th birthday, and I saw the skateboard in the corner of his room, and I asked him if I could try it out. It was something that completely transfixed me. As soon as I jumped on it, and of course I immediately fell off really hard. Yeah. And that was really the start. I was just like totally hooked. I asked my cousin if I could borrow the board, and he said I could have it, and I was like really, really stoked. And we just very shortly after that we moved to Papua New Guinea. So that was just shortly before my 6th birthday. So in Papua New Guinea there weren't so many places to skate. There wasn't so many smooth surfaces around. But funnily enough, as soon as we arrived around my 6th birthday, the hotel that we first stayed in Papua New Guinea before we had our house ready, the hotel actually had an empty pool in it. And somewhere I had seen people skateboarding pools. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And all I did was like ran straight into the wall, like no chance at all. I was like, well, I don't understand how they do it, but yeah. So it was really just like tic-tacking and sort of rolling and pushing those years in Papua New Guinea, usually just trying to find like a basketball court or some asphalt. I didn't skateboard that much in total. And then I came back to Australia. So that was 1980 when I first had the skateboard. And then 1985 we came back to Australia. And I went to the movies for the first time, and the very first film that I saw was Back to the Future. and that blew my mind again. So it was I have to skateboard, and that really, I got out that skateboard, and then I made another skateboard myself, because my brother's 4 years younger than me, and I wanted him to skateboard as well. So the board that I had was like a fiberglass board from the 70s. It was very skinny, like a banana board, but out of fiberglass. So it was like a pro model from 1973. It had SGI trucks, and it was a proper urethane wheel. So urethane wheels must have just come out, or shortly around that time. And so then when I made my own skateboards in 1985, I just made this same thing out of wood. I just traced it out, and I bought some roller skates secondhand and hacksawed them in half and stuck one wheel on each side. And we lived a little bit out of the city, so I was just basically on a farm with a little stretch of concrete, and just skateboarding up and down, and building the first ramps were just a wooden door and a bird cage, and roll very, very basic flat bank. So yeah, that was
super DIY.
That was the start of it all. And then getting my first wide board, I actually won it in a competition. So there was the Veriflix team was at a local shopping centre, and they were doing demos on a vert ramp. And they had a competition for the kids, can you skateboard around these cones? And I could tic-tac around the cones, and I could do a little cess slide. And I won that competition, and I won a Veriflex deck. And then I got the wider wheels, and so this is a 10-inch deck then. So then I got what was then, I guess, a modern skateboard for 1985. And then from there it was getting secondhand, because I was still only 11 years old. So it was pretty hard to just have money to buy a skateboard. Was way out of my
reach. Yeah.
Way out of my reach. So I got secondhand pro model decks for 20 or 30 Australian dollars at the time. And then I slowly made my setup a little bit better, and that was that was then.
The progression.
And then really wanting to get jobs, and I started babysitting, and I started to do little odd jobs, and that's what I could then try to buy skateboard
gear.
stuff with gear and keep it going. But it started to really become a craze in Australia in 1987. So there was just this real wave up, and there were lots of pro tours. So I saw a pro demo in 1985 with Tony Hawk was at it, and Christian Hosoi, and I had a little 35mm camera, and took extremely bad photos of them where they're just flying in the air, and that's all you can see.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
Seeing having those pro tours, and then skateboarding just really becoming a big deal. That was, it was a super exciting time. But
I'm sure,
I was never a really good skateboarder. It was something that I was very passionate about, but all my friends were always a little bit better than me, and always a little bit faster at taking on things. So it was something that was just I was really passionate about, but not necessarily the best.
Yeah, you weren't aspiring to become a pro skater or something like that. It always stayed fun for you, and you didn't really try to get sponsored or stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I think I was just realistic about it, because even just within that little group of friends that I had, they entered competitions and did quite well, but they were also better at skateboarding than me. And I was pushing it and just trying to do what I could. I built a 6-foot ramp as a 13-year-old. But it was only 8 foot wide, so it was it was pretty hard to skate. But we didn't even have platforms on one side for about 6 months. It just sort of went up, and no coping, no platform. So that was. I think I was pretty realistic about what my skills were. Yeah. But over time, I then I try to like get into and do as well as I could. And I skateboarded in a few competitions in the mid-90s. So sort of like in my mid-20s, there was a skate park in mid-Melbourne, and I entered 2 competitions there, and I got like 3rd in like a open division, which was like not sponsored skaters. And I also entered the Mystic Cup in Prague in 1996. And then I had like Willie Santos in my run and Rune Glifberg.
Wow.
And but it was like, hey, it costs $5 to enter. I'm going to like enter, and they're letting me enter, so I'm going to go for it. So I wanted to just like push it as much as I could, but I was always pretty realistic that I was never going to be a professional skateboarder.
Yeah. I see. And so tell me a little bit about as you were growing up. So you were skating, and eventually you finished high school. And so I understand that you started studying chemistry. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, I did environmental science, and there were 2 streams, and there was a biology stream and a chemistry stream, and I did then an honours year, which is like a year beyond the degree, and that's sort of like a track towards doing a PhD. Mm-hmm. I was quite interested in actually like getting a job with an environmental organisation, like something like Greenpeace. Like, could I be I was interested in protecting the environment, and how could I use a chemistry degree to do that? But I didn't get a job in chemistry. I got a job at a university more in the social sciences. So it was kind of nothing to do with my background. But I took it on, and that was in emergency management. So that was all about like natural disasters, floods and fires, and how to handle them, how to bounce back from them. What is that was sort of a track that I took work-wise. Okay.
So I understand you went to Afghanistan with your ex-girlfriend at the time. I think you didn't have a job at that time, and went there accompanying her basically. And eventually on site you started skating with the local kids or something, and started this whole passion project, if I can call it that. But how did Skateistan start, and what were you doing before that, basically, is my question.
Yeah, I was doing all sorts of different things. I started a bread business, just like at a local market, and then I started to get into making food and selling at wholesale. And I catered a few weddings, and I did stuff for like different cafes. So that was my own little business that I was doing on the side, apart from like the job at the uni. And then I left the uni job, and then I actually moved to Central Australia, and I did some work in the healthcare system with Indigenous people in Central Australia. Then I just moved overseas, and my girlfriend at the time got a scholarship in Hungary at Central European University. So then we lived there for a bit, and then I was in Morocco for a little while, and then she got the job in Afghanistan. I was living in Germany and just sort of trying to work out what I could do. And then eventually I then went to Kabul, and I was looking for a job myself. But I brought a few skateboards with me, because maybe other people that also skate like would not bring their skateboard with them. And then at least if I could like build a little mini ramp or do something, then at least I could skateboard with somebody else as well. So that was the idea. There was no idea about like starting an NGO or teaching skateboarding to Afghans or anything like that. It was just like bring some stuff along. And I arrived there in wintertime, so there was just like nowhere that you could have skateboarded at all. And as soon as then I arrived in February 2007. So it was like another couple of months until it was like dry enough, and I just started to skateboard inside the guest house compound that we had. And then I started to found some other people that also skateboarded, and went and found a high school where it was possible to skate at. And then like kids would come around and like be really interested in what was going on, and it was fun to then just like, hey, do you want to try this out? And they'd sort of roll around, and it was pretty funny. And we took some photos, and people were like pretty stoked on that. And I was just like really excited that girls were trying to skateboard, because I didn't see girls riding bicycles or playing soccer like the boys or doing any activities. And that was like exciting for me. So it was like, oh, maybe there's some little could do some more sessions. So yeah, I was working on a main army base, just at a cafe on the base, and then in my spare time, that was the job that I could get. And then in my spare time, I was just like doing these little skate sessions with some other people. And then there was this group of like 20-year-old Afghan guys that were like really stoked about it and excited. And by them translating, it was possible to then go and find other kids and skateboard together with them as well.
Yeah.
And then I went to India for a holiday, and then I had a really bad motorcycle accident in India, and I completely shattered my shoulder, and I had to go back to Australia for surgery. And then there, as I was like recovering from that, I was sort of writing down more and more ideas about like how this skateboarding thing could be actually possibly
more organized.
Done. How could it be more organized? What could it be done? And because I'd been skateboarding in Melbourne for so long, I knew quite a few people like in the industry, and a good friend was running black box distribution at the time. And so I asked him about support, and he happened to be in the US at the time and was like with Jamie Thomas, and asked Jamie directly, and Black Box was doing really well in 2007. So I guess that was something that, Jamie backed. And Jamie Thomas was like a real superhero to me in skateboarding. It was like street skating. It was like mid-90s. That was sort of like my time, and Jamie's part in.
He's a legendary pro skater for sure.
Yeah, in the Toy Machine video was like the video part. That was to have somebody like that like backing me at that point. I was like, fuck, if Jamie's
Dream
backing me, I better really do something. Yeah, and. So I got some boards through Black Box, and I tried to I worked on a building site to like earn some money to then just go back to Afghanistan and try to start this thing. We ran a little fundraiser at a friend's bar in Melbourne, and I literally had like 2,000 Australian dollars, which is 1,200 euros, and a plane ticket back to Afghanistan, and just try to make it work. So it was very, very humble beginnings, and it grew from there. Just finding some volunteers that wanted to get involved, doing the sessions finding this empty fountain that was in 2008 that was like really good to skateboard in. And when I was doing these sessions in different places around Kabul, quite often kids would try to run off with like a skateboard. So I'd have to like chase after them and like get the skateboard back. And the fountain was really good because it was like a controlled space, and I didn't really allow people to then skate outside of the fountain, and I could control the whole situation. And for me, it was a little bit like a science experiment in a way, because I didn't want to like show them how to skateboard either. I wanted to like just observe how they were like interacting with the board. And most of the time the kids would like put their foot like right onto the nose and try to almost tic-tac like they're just going fakey, but It doesn't work. You can't do that. So I didn't really, I just let the kids between themselves talk about it and teach each other and try to do things. And I gave the girls more time to skateboard than the boys, because the boys had other opportunities that they could do. They could go and play cricket, or they could go and fly a kite or whatever.
Sure.
Girls couldn't do these things in Afghanistan, and somehow skateboarding was okay because there were no rules around it that they couldn't do it because it was so new. There were rules, There were societal rules that said you shouldn't do that because it's a boys' activity, but skateboarding wasn't seen as a boys' activity because nobody had seen it before. Mm-hmm. And because the girls had more time than the boys, of course they got better at skateboarding than the boys. And that really confused everybody. It was that must be a sport for girls because they're better at it than the boys. So, but it was a simple thing of giving them access and giving them time. And, when you have opportunities, things come from them. So that really got me stoked. And I was just I don't really know what I'm doing, but this is pretty cool. And, I had a little Chinese motorbike, and I just go to the fountain and try to run these sessions a couple of times a week. And over time I got to know the kids better, and a lot of them just came from super poor backgrounds, and most of them were begging on the streets or selling stuff, or, they weren't in school. And a lot of the kids were saying to me, I was going to school, but my parents pulled me out of school because they want me to just work the whole time. They want me to bring in more money. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I'd heard early on arriving in Afghanistan. And I didn't have any background in international development, but I did a lot of reading before going to Afghanistan. I just read about everything that I could. And a lot of the stuff was about the international development assistance to Afghanistan. And there was a lot of critique from Afghans themselves that was why are you telling us continuously what to do? Why don't you just listen to what we want? And that really made sense to me, because that was the only way that a project could be sustainable. If somebody is coming along and they've got some ideas and they've got some money, it's going to work as long as you've got that money. But as soon as the money runs out, there's no motivation from the local population to keep on doing that. The fact that the kids were so crazy about skateboarding, they're the ones that were not giving me my skateboard back. I was having to wrestle with them every time.
Okay.
That was this is something that the kids want. Half of the population in Afghanistan is under the age of 15. So it's just this enormous youth demographic. Mm-hmm. This is something that makes sense. It sounds crazy to want to skateboard in Afghanistan where there's nowhere to skate, but hey, this is a chance for Afghans to actually say themselves what they want. And nobody listens to the kids, so why not do it? So that also then made me listen to the kids as well. When they said, hey, I want to go to school, I was well, maybe I can help you get back to school. And I was I don't know how to do it, but let's try.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
It was a matter of just talking to the parents of the kids and just saying, how could this work? And they said, well, we rely on the income from this kid. Can you pay them? If you can pay them to skateboard, then, we can, I'll let my kid go back to school. And I had almost no money at all myself. I was literally living on $20, $30 a week. It was really, really going to the market at closing time and bargaining down on potatoes and onions. And it's all right, okay, I can give the kids $1 per session. Mm-hmm. This is something that I could afford, but you got to agree for your kid to go back to school. And so that was the first link to education. And the kids went back to school. They became skateboard instructors, and it was really important to have female skateboard instructors for the girls, because I didn't want to be. It would be culturally inappropriate for boys and girls, especially. over the age of 12, and obviously I'm an older male, so I needed to have a female skateboard instructor for the girls to be able to keep on doing it. And so that got the first girl back to school. And Fazilla was the first skateboard instructor. And then from there, it was sort of like, well, this is working. Maybe there could be, what's the next step? And what was happening was that the girls could skateboard when they were 8 or 9 or 10 or 11. This was all in 2008. But as soon as they hit like 12, 13 and entering into puberty, then the parents would just say, no, you can't go and hang out with the boys anymore, or, you can't be in this mixed environment. And so that's where I realized, hey, it has to be an indoor space and it has to be a female-only space. Then these girls can keep on skateboarding. They want to keep on skateboarding, but they're not allowed to. So how do we get around this? And so that led to the whole idea of like, okay, let's build an indoor facility somehow. Let's see if it's possible. And creating a website and getting people to help with different stuff in terms of registering as an NGO and trying to get land and trying to do all of these things. So the big breakthrough was getting land from the Afghan Olympic Committee. And the whole way that came about was like a bit of a misunderstanding, because I had a meeting with the new president of the Olympic Committee.
Okay.
The old one was like, I'd tried lots of times and nobody was receptive at all.
Yeah.
And then this new guy came in and his son rollerbladed. And so when I was saying, I want to build this skate park, he thought it was like for rollerblading. And I didn't realize that. I was just like talking about a skate park and this is what it looked like and this is what you do.
Yeah.
So he just got super stoked because he thought it'd be something that his son would be like really interested in doing.
Yeah.
And then he turns up the first day with his rollerblades. We're like, you can't ride that. You can't use those. And it's like, oh no, okay, you're the only one that can rollerblade in here. It's all right.
Special access. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the golden misunderstanding. So I managed to get support from the Norwegian government. So the Norwegian ambassador met with me and I showed him photos of what I was doing and he got pretty stoked on it.
So sorry to cut you off, but how did that connection happen?
I happened to be at a bar one night in Kabul and I met somebody that was working at the Norwegian embassy and I told her what I was doing and she basically said, bullshit, you're doing that. And I said, all right, you come out tomorrow and have a look. And she saw it and she was absolutely blown away. And then she told the ambassador, and then so that's how I got that meeting. Mm-hmm. And another time I was just in a cafe and doing a Skype call with somebody and just saying, hey, I'm just like desperate right now. I need just $5,000 to keep on going. And there was another journalist that was in the cafe and he overheard my conversation. And then he gave me a contact to somebody at the Canadian embassy. So then I had a contact to them. And because I'd already met with the Canadian embassy, then the Norwegian embassy was like also more interested. And then the Norwegian ambassador then organised a lunch and he invited the Danish ambassador and the German ambassador at the time. And so then he pulled those other two countries in. And so with all of those four, Canada, Norway, Denmark and Germany, that was sort of like the initial funding for like building that first structure on the grounds of the Afghan Olympic Committee. And there was a building company that was built based in Dubai, and they agreed to build the building under cost price. So they said that they'll build it to me for $200,000, and that would have normally cost about $800,000 in Kabul at the time. And so all of the donors were like, wow, like, how did you do that? How did you then build something? They're all just putting in $50,000 each or so. And then all of a sudden there's this incredible facility that was built super fast and super high quality. And we had Schutzi from IOU Ramps came out and built all the ramps. And I mean, he's like the best ramp builder in Europe, maybe even the world. So we had this super high quality facility that we actually had marble floor.
Marble, wow.
Because it's super cheap in Afghanistan. The whole it was like 400 square meters, the skate park, and that cost 8,000 to do the floor, and that was like a cheap flooring option. And for skateboarding, it was like so perfect. So it was super smooth.
A little slippery maybe, but yeah.
It definitely worked out. And because we also got the kids to wear all safety gear, because I was just super scared of anybody hurting themselves. When you combine safety gear with marble floor, you basically don't get hurt, because you come off, you slide, you're not like you're not breaking bones. So
sure.
It was something that was opening the facility in Kabul in 2009 was that was the best day of my life. That was incredible.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. I think I saw images of that in a short documentary from back then. I think I don't remember the title of the documentary, but it was like a short 10-minute film shot in like 2010 or 2011 maybe.
That's in the Kabul facility, and that was filmed a little bit after the opening. At the opening, we had Cairo Foster came out, and Kenny Reed came out, and Maysam Faraj from Dubai, Louisa Menke came. Yep. So that was pretty rad.
Yeah.
And then it all kind of grew from there.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you just about starting the whole thing. Did you ever have any were parents sometimes reluctant to have you teach skateboarding to their children, especially maybe for the young girls? Did you ever have basically reluctance from their part, not maybe trusting you, being from being an outsider, basically a foreigner? And especially teaching skateboarding, which is something I guess Afghanistan had probably never seen before, or
definitely it was. We had to do a lot of work to gain the acceptance of the parents, and I realized pretty early on that it really can't be seen as something from the West. So if it's just a skateboard by itself, then it doesn't have any cultural baggage. It's just a board with four wheels. So
exactly,
I didn't show the kids any skateboard magazines. I didn't show them any videos. There was no Western influences, because I knew that could be then something that would be, the parents would be like, no way, that's this is an influence that I don't want to expose my kid to. So I was very, very sensitive to that right at the start. And we did a lot of things to win the parents over. So, for example, at the opening day, we had a really prominent mullah come and talk, and I asked the mullah to talk about the importance of girls doing sport. And he told a story about one of the wives of Prophet Muhammad that was taking part in a running race. And so this is just perfect. They're hearing it from them. It's okay for your girls to come here and skateboard. So we had to continuously do that background work. And of course, lots of parents were not into it, and they didn't allow that, or their girls, they'd come. But the secret weapon was that skateboarding is so much fun. And so the kids would get home, and the parents would say, you can't do that. And they'd cry for days on end until they were allowed back again. So It was all about like, how can we make this as safe as possible, as fun as possible, as inclusive as possible, so the kids are all mixing together, and make sure that we don't give anybody any excuses to like shut it down, because basically it was pretty magical.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting, especially the part about not showing them too much of the skateboarding culture from the West, basically, because maybe that would have turned off some people, as you said. So it probably was the best option to just bring the skateboard and have them just figure it out on their own, sort of, kind of guide them through it, but not say, oh, you should do this because like this pro skater in America does it this way or whatever,
And I was really stoked on how they were creating their own culture and how they were creating their own tricks. And, it sort of didn't really make sense within the whole of skateboarding. But, they're wearing like, the guys are wearing showa kamises, which is just like the big baggy clothing that's almost impossible to skateboard in because you can't see your feet and you can't see your board. And the girls are wearing like all of this colourful like Afghan clothes, and it was like a big deal for them to like come to the skate school and like see other people. So they were all like trying to like wear their best clothes. And then like some of the kids were getting into, they could get like these little MP3 players and they'd like skateboard with earphones in, the same as like kids were doing all around the world as well, but they're listening to like a Bollywood soundtrack, and they had all of their influences in fashion from Iran and from Pakistan and from Afghanistan, and it became its own like little own culture. Skate cosmos, its own skate culture. And I understood as if that grew and that was like the way that it was seen, then, hey, maybe this is something that we can keep on doing.
Sure. Yeah. And so what about the staff, the people that have, been working, not necessarily today, but especially at the very beginning? How did you find people to help out, basically, like educators and I'm just interested in hearing how you found people to help you along the way, basically.
It really started in that fountain with those kids that were like in the streets there. And then when the skate park was built, they actually helped Shutsi like building the ramps. And then they became the instructors in the skate park and in the classroom. And then we started to create a few little jobs. And I mean, we were only able to afford like $200 a month pay. So we didn't get like people that were super professional. It was just sort of people that were starting their careers and were kind of interested in what we're doing. So we were able to get a couple of Afghans to join. And when they saw what was going on, they were really excited about it. So, instead of earning $500 or $600 a month somewhere else, they would take the job with us for less, and because they were stoked about it. Their parents weren't stoked on that. So that's where it started. And then we had some international volunteers that would come for 6 months at a time. And we'd set up a guest house, and that was sort of like the way that we could afford to do things in an affordable way. Over time, we realized like it doesn't make sense to just keep on having these people come in for 6 months and then leave, because it takes like 2 or 3 months to get your head around the new job, and then by the time you're starting to get good at it, you leave, and then you have to you have to train somebody else. So that's where we really focused in on how can we have as many national staff as possible. So in Afghanistan, really just trying to build up the staff so that they could just keep on going, because that was just a more sustainable model. And by the time it got to 2015, 2016, and we had the skate schools in South Africa, in Cambodia, in Afghanistan, we pulled all international staff out of all of the projects. So it was only national staff, and it's just all professional. So everybody is paid, and this is then a sustainable model to keep it going. And that's where we got to. And 2012, so a couple of years before that, we started the headquarters in Berlin, Germany.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I was just curious to know, because you were in Kabul before that, and what made you relocate to, at least the headquarters, I mean, to Berlin, and why Berlin?
Well, we were trying to run a global operation from Kabul, and there was no post box. We couldn't get post. We couldn't get a credit card. We couldn't get a PayPal account. We couldn't. The internet would be dropping out many times a day. The electricity would be dropping out many times a day, and we were trying to coordinate things in Cambodia and South Africa, in fundraising globally. We had entities around the world that were in the US, in the UK, in Denmark, in Germany that were doing fundraising as well. And to coordinate that all from Kabul, we needed to have certain staff to do that. And then I needed to try to attract staff to Afghanistan to then work on that. And it was like only certain people are like ready to come and work in Afghanistan. We hardly could pay anything. Mm-hmm. And it just, and then the internet doesn't work. So it's like, I remember uploading a 2.5 meg photo, and it took me 7 minutes. So it's just like, how do you get work done? Yeah. Okay. So we were trying to like do these, like a little zine or do this or that. And like anything that we were doing, it was just painstakingly slow, and certain things were just really, really expensive in Afghanistan as well. So my mum's German. I speak German. We had a whole lot of volunteers in Berlin as well. And Berlin was also a city that I really liked. So
it made sense for you to go there. Yeah,
it made sense. So there was this, I sort of underestimated German bureaucracy. That was definitely a big
obstacle,
and big learning curve. But it was really cool that we did that in 2012, and we also wanted to be on a pretty similar time zone to Cambodia and South Africa and Afghanistan, and it was only like 2.5 hours difference from Afghanistan in Berlin, so that was pretty cool. South Africa was the same time zone, so
easier than if you're in Australia, for example.
Exactly, like Australia, North America, these other places where we could have built things up from and could have been a headquarters. It just really made sense as a hub to be, fairly central in Europe. And Berlin in 2012 was like pretty affordable as well. Like it was actually competitively priced with Afghanistan in terms of like rent and all sorts of stuff, which is crazy. But it's changed a lot in the last 10 years in Berlin. things have gone up. But yeah, that's sort of how we ended up there.
Okay. So, you mentioned a bit the other locations where you're located now and where you spread out basically after Afghanistan. But before we talk about that, I just had a question basically about Afghanistan, because as of course the situation over there is quite complicated right now with Taliban that came back in the summer or spring, I don't remember exactly, but of last year. I understand that you had to suspend your activities temporarily over there to just wait and see how things were going to turn out. And I just saw yesterday on LinkedIn and or maybe on your Instagram, I don't remember, but that you started collecting food or something, or at least started kind of working over there again. Can you tell me a little bit about how it's going right now over there?
Sure. Yeah. In August, the Taliban took over the country, and that meant that it was really a period of insecurity and instability for everybody. A lot of our staff left the country at that point in time, but we still had staff on the ground, and we were all committed to just keep on going. And we didn't actually ever stop. We just had to stop programs at a certain time because there's a new government, and then with a new government, you need to then form new relationships and get new permissions for working. So we hired some staff in September and October, and we've been working hard on getting all of those permissions from the Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Education and the line ministries for the work that we do. And right now, 95% of the population in Afghanistan don't have food security. That means that they're literally almost the whole country is starving. There's 40 million people in the country, and it's a big part of it is a lack of access to money. So even if people have money in the bank, they can't actually pull it out of the bank. They're only allowed to get $100 a week out, and they might need a lot more than that just to pay their rent and eat and everything. So it's a really complicated situation. So we started to do some food distribution to our students and their families, and we've distributed food for over 500 people so far for at least a month's worth of food, and we're continuing to build that out. And we've got some remote sessions that are happening with our students in Afghanistan, and we just have to build it out from there. But getting those permissions, building those new relationships, also with the new Afghan Olympic Committee, where we've got in Kabul our facility is on, and then we've got the other 2 skate schools in northern Afghanistan and in Bamyan.
That's right, yeah.
And the Bamyan facility was just finished mid-August, and then the Taliban basically took over 2 days later. So
bummer, yeah. No, but it's great that you're able to keep participating over there, even if it's not through regular skate programs. At least you're helping out and still participating. So that's great.
Yeah, we're committed in the long term to Afghanistan, and we're really excited to open up those schools again and just see what is possible for Skateistan and Afghanistan into the future. But I'd really maybe we'll move our headquarters back to Kabul in 2032, as long as there's fast internet.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, probably it will be. But all right. So we mentioned the other locations. So you're now, as we were speaking, you're so in Afghanistan. You're also in Cambodia, in South Africa, and I saw that you're spreading to other countries. I think I saw that you're in Jordan and Kenya, and I think Bolivia as well.
That's right. Yep.
So yeah, tell me, and I think that's all part of basically the new chapter that you're building on for this year to come and the next years to come. Can you tell me about basically all the locations where you're spreading out as we're speaking, and how you intend to just make it all happen?
Yeah, we want to use all of that experience of being born on the streets of Kabul and starting the project from something that the kids really were excited about. And it's something that has worked so well, and worked then in South Africa and worked in Cambodia. And so we simply want to spread this globally as much as we can. And for the next 12 months, we've come up with a 5-pronged strategy to do that. We want to try some new things out. So firstly, we're doing something called the Innovation Fund, which is about shorter projects and smaller projects. And just being flexible. So now that we've got refugees from Afghanistan in different places, in the US and in Belgium and Sweden and Australia, we're thinking about how they could be possibly involved in running programs with other refugees in those areas, and just testing it out, just seeing if we can, instead of like building this massive skate school and all of the infrastructure and all of the, these very big long-term projects that we've been used to doing, are there also some shorter, smaller things that we can do? So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is through Good Push. And the Good Push Alliance is a knowledge sharing network that we set up in around 2018. And, it started with like 35 social skate projects, a lot of them inspired by Skateistan and, growing at the time. We've now identified 600 social skate projects globally.
That's incredible.
There's 100 in Brazil alone. So it's going absolutely insane. Crazy. And we just want to spread the knowledge, everything that we know, with all of these projects, because we just don't see them as competitors at all. It's like we want them to thrive. We want them to not make the same mistakes that we did. And if we can help them grow, that's the idea of the Good Push Alliance. We've got an e-learning platform as well where people can go on and go through different courses and help them understand different aspects of running a social skate project successfully. And the stuff that we're into right now is there was also the Pushing Against Racism initiative that was launched last year. And there's Pushing Against Racism awards that are happening now, and there's also a refugee skate network that's evolved as well. So that's really exciting stuff in terms of how can we grow also through the Good Push Alliance and all of its members. And we did a survey of those social skate projects, and 90% of them were interested in running some sort of Skateistan curriculum. So we're just seeing how that can all grow. And then there's public school partnerships in South Africa. We're in Atlantis, which is on the Western Cape. And there's a couple of schools that have skate parks at the schools. And so we're starting to run a little program together with the schools, and we're seeing, can this be a pilot for doing something much, much larger, maybe with a Ministry of Education in a different country? Like, how could there be skateboarding curriculum that we could develop together with the ministry that then is in all of the schools across the country potentially? So that's something that we're looking at. Then the fourth part is rebuilding in Afghanistan. So that's this step that I
just talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
And then the fifth one is Skateistan in a Box. And again, Andreas Schutzenberger from IU Ramps is helping us out. And we're building like a mini Skateistan school. So it's simply like a shipping container that's fitted out to be like a classroom. And you can also then run skateboarding stuff outside. And then you've got that space to link it with educational opportunities for the kids. And we want to really make it high tech, and we've just built a prototype and we're going to test that out. So maybe it'll be like a refugee camp somewhere in Europe where we test it out first. We haven't quite got the location yet, but the idea is to do a Skateistan school in miniature. And
okay, interesting.
How could that work? So that's all of the 5 prongs of our expansion strategy over the next 12 months.
Okay. And I think that you mentioned on the website, or I saw it somewhere, that you intend to spread out to 20 different countries, or I think
20 different locations. So we want to have 20 locations. We want to have 20 locations in total by the end of 2022.
Okay.
So that'll be a pretty significant expansion for Skateistan in 1 year. But we're also trying different things, and we just want to see what works. And
sure,
there's so much opportunity. We do a survey of the social skate sector every year. And so we're starting to build a bit of a picture of what are the needs of all of these social skate projects and what are the best ways that they can grow. And I mean, as we can estimate at the moment, the total sector is only $10 million. And I mean, it's enormous across the globe, all of these projects and all of the impact that it's having and all of the lives that it's changing of all of these kids all over the globe. You know, how can we play a role in really investing in that and helping it all grow?
Awesome. I have just a few last questions. So, okay, one of them was about the recent documentary that won awards, the Learning How to Skateboard in a Warzone, If You're a Girl documentary. I actually wanted to watch it to kind of gather some information on Skateistan, but I couldn't find it. Does that mean that it's not available yet, or do you know?
Unfortunately, it's only been released in the US, so it's available available in the US. We don't have control over where it's released. We really would love it to be available globally.
Global,
but
eventually it will happen. I hope. Yeah, that would be
it was pretty surreal to be at the Oscars in 2020.
I think I saw a picture on your Instagram with like the Oscar or something. It was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was super fun to be there with Tony Hawk and a few other
That's a bucket list moment for sure. Yeah.
A lot of the craziness that goes around all of that. But yeah, no, definitely very memorable.
Okay. And so how did this whole project come about, basically? Did they approach you, or was it the other way around? And how long did the shooting take place?
They invited me to its A&E network, which is a television channel in the US, and they simply had a whole lot of female executives at the top of the programming, and they saw a book, The Skate Girls of Kabul, that was released about Skateistan, and they just thought, hey, we'd love to do a movie about something like this. And I got excited by the fact that it was a whole lot of women that wanted to do it. Yeah, and then the idea was that there would be a woman producer, woman director, female, as much as possible. So at that point, I was like, hey, if we can make this work, I think it's a cool concept and it could be a cool angle to see. And they came to Kabul on two different times. It was just all focused in on the Kabul skate school and our back to school program. So that's where the kids come for. They do an accelerated learning program, and it gets them back into the regular school system. So they come with us, they come to Skateistan for a year, and then after a year they graduate and they can go straight into like the third grade or the fourth grade, even if they've missed grades 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. They do all of that with us. So that's what the film's about. It's 40 minutes long, and we didn't give them that much access. We basically said we'll give you I think it was probably a maximum of 8 days that we gave them total access. So they really had to be, we wanted it to be a light touch in terms of not disrupting the school.
Well, yeah.
It was really important to us that it wasn't like taking over in any way. And so it was just 4 days on one occasion and 4 days on another. So they did a pretty good job with the limitations that we placed on them.
Well, yeah, I mean, the awards speak for themselves, I guess.
But hopefully the movie will be available. It has played at some film festivals in Berlin and some other capitals, so look out for it at film festivals. It's been put on television at different times in different places. So it played in Italy and played in Australia, and then was available on demand. So yeah, it's a matter of trying to track it down and looking out for it.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep my eyes open for it because I really want to see it. All right, so I have 2 questions from friends of yours.
Okay.
So I'll have you listen to them in a second. But just for people who are listening to this and who would want to maybe support Skateistan, what is a good way to help you out? I know that on your website you can do donations. If people want to, do volunteer work for you or stuff like that, what's the best way to help out Skateistan, basically?
Yeah, the best way to help is to donate and spread the word about what we're doing. We do have opportunities for work that come up from time to time, but there's fairly limited volunteering opportunities. Yeah, we definitely follow us on social media and let other people know, because we really want to get everybody behind what we're doing. This is something that a lot of people can connect to, whether it's girls' empowerment, whether it's education, whether it's even just purely skateboarding. There's lots of different angles to get people interested in. So letting people know is super important to us. And looking every year we run a campaign. At the moment we've got a campaign running where we're trying to raise 1.5 million, and I think we've got about 900,000 raised so far. So massive thank you to everybody that has supported the campaign so far, and it's gonna help us with all of that expansion over the next year. So yeah, look out for Skateistan where it exists. We've got a big collaboration with Vans at the moment, so you can buy Skateistan Vans shoes and hoodies and stuff like that to represent.
Oh, I didn't see that. Is that available on the Vans website?
Yeah, that's available through Vans, and
yeah, I'll check it out.
Lots of different co-brandings that we do from time to time that are, exciting, and it's great, Wear a T-shirt, spread the word.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I just had one last question, before I have you listen to your friends. We talked, skateboarding has been at the genesis of all this. And so I was just wondering, for you personally, what would you say is the kind of the best lesson and the most precious thing you've learned through or from skateboarding in your life?
Well, I think it's about how the skateboard makes you humble. It's something that you can't do perfectly, and that's the same as anything in our lives. We've got to keep on striving and keep on trying to do things. And I think I was humbled within seconds the first time I stepped on a skateboard in 1980, and I continue to be humbled by skateboarding today. I went skateboarding on Sunday. It was like -2, and just doing flatland at 47 years of age is
tough,
brutal.
Yeah. For sure.
It's very, very humbling. So I think that's a really important element for people to have in their lives, and we don't need to do things perfectly. We don't need to be experts at things. We don't need to even be good at things. We can just do what we can and do what we do, and there's always going to be people that are able to do something better than you, and there's always going to be people that can't do things as well as you, and that's something that I definitely learned from skateboarding.
Awesome. Okay, so I won't tell you who the people are. I'll just have you listen to... so I have questions from two friends of yours. I'll have you listen to the first question.
Hey Oliver, hey Quentin, this is Julian Dykmans in Berlin, and here's my question. So Oliver, you've been skating for about 4 decades now. I wonder, how do you keep it fun? And then also, what is inspiring for you today in skateboarding? Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Julian, for the questions. How do I keep it fun? Well, I think it's about not setting unrealistic expectations and just going with it. It's so rad to skate with your friends and share some time and basically just get out and be active. I had a pretty big ankle injury around when I was about 29, and so I've lived with that for almost 20 years, and that really impacted my ability to skate. Like, I just couldn't. It was my back foot, and to pop was hard, and then even just with nollies as well, like the other way, I couldn't move my foot in the same way.
It's your right ankle?
It's my right ankle, yeah.
And didn't you have surgery again recently?
I had surgery last year in April, so I've recovered from the surgery. Skateboarding again in September, and it's so exciting to have like a greater range of motion. So yeah, I guess keeping it fun. Part of it is like staying healthy, looking after your body. That keeps it fun. It's fun when you keep on going. And what inspires me in skateboarding at the moment
today, yeah,
I think how skateboarding is, branching out. I'm especially inspired by women in skateboarding, girls being at maybe the only person at a spot. That's really exciting to see, because that wasn't a reality in the 80s or the 90s or even just, 15 years or 10 years ago.
Even not that long ago, yeah.
So I find that super inspiring, and I think when it's going into new countries, and then there's also, it being more inclusive, that's super inspiring to me, because I think that skateboarding can do so much for so many people. It doesn't need to stay a white male sport for people from middle income to rich countries. Skateboarding is for everybody. That's a reality. How do we make that more of a reality?
Absolutely. All right, so very last question from another friend.
Okay, so if you were able to only listen to one more song like, and then you'll die. So, like, what would be the song you would listen to if you could only listen to one more song?
Did you recognize the voice?
That was Louisa Menke.
Yes. It's kind of a dark question, but
yeah,
interesting one.
That's a tricky one, but I definitely like listening to Seek and Destroy by Metallica from Kill 'Em All.
That's a good one. Yeah, good choice. That's it for my conversation with Oliver Percovich. To learn more about the amazing work Oliver and the whole Skateistan team are doing around the world, follow them on their Instagram account @Skateistan. Go check out their website skateistan.org and donate to help them reach their goal of expanding to 20 different locations by the end of 2022. Also, keep an eye open for the Learning How to Skateboard in a Warzone If You're a Girl documentary, which should be available worldwide in the near future. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon for a new episode of Beyond Boards.